President, I now call this meeting to order. The time is 4:26 p.m.
At this time, I will call roll call. When your name is called, please answer with here or present. Ramon Garza, President.
Present.
Jeff Miller, Vice President.
Here.
Adrian Stevens, Secretary.
Present.
Trustees, Wilford J. Broussard Jr. Wanda Heath Johnson.
Present.
Noe Esparza.
Here.
And Norma Hernandez.
Here.
Also joining us through video conference and will respond with here or present are Sharonda Johnson, Executive Director for School and Community Relations. Brishan Thompson, Coordinator for School and Community Relations. Anna Salinas, Administrative Assistant to the Superintendent's Office.
Here.
Elizabeth Layler, Deputy Superintendent for Educational Support and School Administration.
Here.
And various cabinet members. The following participants will be located in the boardroom at 14705 Wood Forest Boulevard, Houston, Texas. Please answer here or present when your name is called. Brian Clements, Chief of Police and Executive Director for Cybersecurity.
Here.
Elizabeth Valdez, Executive Assistant to the Board of Trustees and Superintendent.
Here.
And I, Dr. John Moore, Superintendent of Schools, here. Staff members in the boardroom will practice social distancing as required, where there will be no more than 3 people in the boardroom as outlined. We will use masks, hand sanitizers, disinfectants, etc. as recommended. I will now turn this meeting over to Ramon Garza, Board President.
Thank you, Joe. Ms. Valdez, are there any citizen participation items for this evening?
We have no citizen participation items today.
Ms. Valdez, are there any public comment items for this evening?
We have no public comment items today.
Thank you. I will now turn the floor over to Elizabeth Layler, Deputy Superintendent for Educational Support and School Administration, who will present the transition plan and possible hybrid model for 2020 through 2021 school year. Ms. Layler?
You're on mute.
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Good.
Good.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Ma'am.
Yes.
All right. So tonight on the board agenda is going to be 2 requests for TEA waivers. So we're going to go through those. So transitioning to face-to-face support or face-to-face instruction. TEA gave us 4 things that we can do, 4 supports. John called them 4 ACEs earlier that we can do as we go to this process. So the first one is the option to move back the start of school. So you as a board already did this, and this has really been helpful because, as Dr. Moore said earlier, if you were on, we've learned some things other districts are doing wrong, and hopefully we're being proactive and not going to have those same mistakes. Next is the first 4 weeks can be used from transition from remote to face-to-face as a freebie. So we get 4 weeks for free. The second 4 weeks can also be used as a transition if approved by the board. So that's one of the waivers tonight. And high schools are allowed to have a hybrid schedule all year if approved by the board. And that's another waiver tonight that's on the agenda. So the plan for the first 4 weeks, and this is pre-hurricane. So do know that we are happy to adjust as needed. But the Cade Early College High School actually started on Monday with conjunction with their San Jacinto College. So started yesterday. All other schools will plan on starting September 8th. So for the first time ever, we're running 2 different calendars. So the Early College High School, again, started Monday with 100% remote learning. These are our classes. Do know that the college has some technical classes that required some face-to-face instruction, and that started on Monday. Our face-to-face instruction for our students with the high school classes will start week 3, which is September 8th. That's the Tuesday after Labor Day with the other schools start. And we have 170 students who've been identified, whose parents selected it for face-to-face. All other students will be in the remote learning. For our elementary schools, again, they're going to start 9/8 with 100% remote learning. Our plan is to have optional 2-hour tutorials for select groups of students who selected face-to-face. So pre-K and PPCD would be Monday through Friday from 9 to 11, starting on 9/8. Life skills and SLC, same time, same starting date. And then the following week on Tuesdays and Thursdays only is our BTC, which is our Behavior Training Center, our Pass and Focus students. These are students who have counseling as a related service. So it's not intellect, but more behavior that we're working on. And so they will have some counseling services on Tuesdays and Thursdays starting on 9/15. So our middle schools, same plan there, but of course there's no pre-K in middle school, but we do have new arrival. These are students who came new to the country starting last January through now. If I was in Honduras and I never had a Chromebook and my parents don't speak English, I need some additional help. So we're going to have those students reporting 10 to 12 noon. Again, you see the date starting 9/8 and 9/15. High schools look a lot like middle schools, except if you go down to that last bullet, ZOTS, which is our ACE center, on week 3, same thing as early college high school, week 3, which will be 9/21, they'll start face-to-face for the 32 students whose parents selected it. So all other students will be remote learning. But these kids in our alternative school, they need extra support. That's why they're there. And we want to be able to get them into face-to-face a little bit quicker. So that is the plan for the first 4 weeks of school. And again, we will be flexible with that depending on how everything goes and what the Hurricane Laura brings to us. So now the plan for the second 4 weeks of school. Again, the board can approve a waiver tonight to allow us to have additional 4 weeks to transition. The nice thing is you just approve for us to get an additional 4 weeks. You do not have to approve the details of the plan. So I'm going to share with you what our thoughts on the details are, but we are allowed to adjust. It's just you allowing us additional 4 weeks to transition. So the goal is to transition to face-to-face over time to give our operations department time to adjust, get our bus drivers used to cleaning the buses in between runs for elementary, middle, and high school, getting food service up and running, custodians doing deep cleans of our school. So we're going to start with elementary, then middle school, and then high school. So that's the order that we want to go in. And right now, our start dates are elementary, October 5th, which is the 5th week of school. All goes well with that. Then October 12th would be the 6th week of school, and October 19th, which would be the 7th week of school. Of course, we could spread that out a couple more weeks if we needed to. These dates could be adjusted up or down depending on success, local COVID rates, and other factors. We have Labor Day coming up. If people go out and do lots of partying without their mask, we may be backing this up. If there's another outbreak, we may be backing this up. But we have right now, unless TEA changes the rules, which that's the big thing, unless they change the rules, we have to be back to full-time face-to-face for every parent who requested it by the 9th week of school. So I'm going to pause for a second. Any questions on the second 4 weeks plan?
Questions?
Okay, so hearing none, I'm going to talk about the hybrid schedule. This is an additional waiver tonight. And again, the board can approve a waiver, which will allow us to run a hybrid schedule all year. We're not forced to run this hybrid schedule if you give us the approval, but it gives us the option to, and we can go in and out of the hybrid schedule as we see fit, what seems to be best. So again, we're allowed to create a schedule where high school students could do face-to-face 2 or more days a week. And the other days, the students would participate in remote learning. So they still have 5 days of instruction, but at least 2 days would be remote. We could use this model for 2 reasons. If we think this would increase the amount of students we could see face to face. So we felt like a bunch of our parents were unsure about sending their kids to school with large numbers, but would want them to come to school. If we had the hybrid model, then we could use this model. Or if our percent of students, our parents wanting face-to-face was so high, it would be hard to socially distance in the school, then we can use this hybrid model. So, I mean, if there's 1,000 kids at North Shore 9, if 750 wanted to come to school, we couldn't really say we're socially distancing. So we could do the hybrid model and cut that number in half. So if needed, this is the hybrid schedule we're proposing. We would divide our students into 2 groups by addresses. So even if 2 cousins live together with different last names, we would want the same address going to school on the same day. So kids would be in a Monday, Tuesday group or a Wednesday, Thursday group. They would attend school on those days and then have remote learning the other days. Fridays would be used for tutorials and interventions. So we would still have kids up there on Friday, but these are the kids we need to catch up. So we have done a parent survey of our for an instructional arrangement. This was part of our returning student verification and new student enrollment process. So right now we have 14,055 parents of students who have selected virtual, which is 68.5%. For face-to-face, we've had 6,477 parents of students, which is 31.5%. So a total of 532 students. That was as of this morning, which probably means it was as of last night, but we got the report this morning. So we also did a hybrid high school parent survey. So if they had picked face-to-face, we had 1,027 of the parents who picked face-to-face. 49.6% of them said they really preferred a hybrid. So even though they had selected face-to-face, they'd rather their kid go 2 days a week instead of the 5 days a week. So that's 509 parents. And out of the 1,706 parents who had chosen to keep their kids at home remote learning, 19.6% also said they approved a hybrid schedule. So that's 334 parents. So that would be an increase. So some reminders, all parents selected either remote learning or face-to-face as their child's instructional arrangement during the returning student verification or new student enrollment process. Parents can switch their child from face-to-face to remote anytime by keeping their child at home and having him participate in remote learning. So they don't have to inform us, they just can keep their child at home. But parents can switch their child from remote learning to face-to-face at the end of the grading period. So for elementary and middle schools, that's the end of the 9-week mark, and for high schools, that's the 6-week mark. So attendance, I know we've had some questions about attendance. We can count a student in attendance if they're a remote learning kid, if they participate in any face-to-face virtual class, any face-to-face class. So they come up there for practice or any true face-to-face meetings. A Google Meets virtual class, elementary may use something called Seesaw. That's an option. If they turn in an assignment, they complete work online, or they have an academic conversation via phone, text, or email. We have a system called School Status, which translates, and parents left the number or gave us the number they wanted us to contact their kid about work. Again, as part of that returning student verification. So attendance will be reviewed at the September workshop. Something that's coming up is we have to submit a plan to TEA about our remote learning plan. And so that will be presented along with the attendance part at the September workshop. All right, any questions for me on the 2 waivers for tonight or anything else?
So you mean as long as somebody texts, they're counted present that day?
It has, yes, sir, if they're a remote learner, it has to be an academic text. So they could text their teacher or email their teacher and says, okay, I'm having questions. I don't understand how to turn this fraction into a decimal. And the teacher can text back on what to do, and the kid goes, okay, got it, thank you, then that's our proof they were doing work that day.
Man, I wish me and Noe wish we had that back in the 80s.
Amen. I'm with you.
Back in the 60s.
I would have had more perfect attendance than anything.
I'm really hoping we have great attendance this year, because if a kid is at school normally, they're a face-to-face kid, but the parent, let's say grandma died in Louisiana, and so the mom takes the kid out to go to the funeral, so it does not have to be COVID related at all. If the kid will get on and do the work and participate in one of those ways, then we get to count them in attendance. So unless they're truly, truly sick and on their deathbed, we hopefully can have close to 100% attendance. Now, in high school, that's going to be challenging for us to track them down sometimes, but we'll be sending out phone calls in the afternoon to parents saying, hey, your child hasn't logged on today. They have to do the work by 11:59 at night. So if they try to get on like Ms. Hernandez did at 11:50 to submit something, and it doesn't go through to 12:02 a.m., then we count them absent. So we got to get it by 11:59 at night each day.
So
okay. I have a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I was writing down a thought. Okay. So with after the 4 to 8 week, will all the elementary and middle be face-to-face, or do they still have the option to do all virtual or all face-to-face? And then after the 9 weeks, they can choose to do either one? Or
okay, so all parents, when they did their returning student verification or their new student enrollment, picked face-to-face or remote learning. Okay. And that will be their option once we are back to face-to-face.
Okay.
So if you picked for your child to stay remote and Mr. Esparza picked for his child to be face-to-face, once we get to the 9th week of school, then those are the two options.
Okay.
Unless I'm a high school kid and if we decide to do the hybrid.
Okay.
But my point was, any parent who was having their kid go face-to-face can change their mind at any time by just keeping them at home. Okay. But if you had your child at home, you're a remote learner, so you wanted your child at home, you can only switch them at the end of each grading period.
9 weeks.
So we already have a form in Skyward that's being created, and that form will be sent out about 2 weeks before the grading period ends, asking parents to switch if they're interested. We'll give them a deadline because that may change our schedules and our teacher class sizes and that type of thing.
Okay. One question regarding high school.
Yes, ma'am.
Will the high school plan be all hybrid, or some remote, some face-to-face, some hybrid?
So anybody who wants to stay remote can stay remote. So we're at about 70% approximately remote. They can stay remote. It's for the people who want face-to-face, we can decide whether we want to run a hybrid schedule or not. Okay. So, Ms. Martin said to me the other day, right now we're only at about 30%. She'd rather just keep them all 5 days because that's smaller numbers. But remember, they get to change at the end of each 6 weeks. So if we get up to about 50 or 60%, think about North Shore Senior High, that's too many kids there. So then we may choose to go to hybrid. And what we didn't want to do is have the issue and there not be a board meeting around at that time. So the waiver tonight allows you to let us make that decision if need be. And of course, we'll communicate that to you, but we don't have to decide when we're going to use it. It just gives us the right to use it.
Okay. And 2 more questions. Will the sessions be recorded for the remote learning?
Yeah. So we're recording all remote learning, those virtual classes, those Google Meets classes. They'll be recorded, so if a kid doesn't get to it till 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock that afternoon, they'll be able to watch that. And at the end, they'll have a checkout. Remember, I said that they can email. So if I was the history teacher for the day, I might say, okay, what were the 2 causes of the American Revolution that we discussed? And tell me what color shirt I was wearing.
Okay.
Email that to me and give my email address. And if the kid emails that, then I know they watched my Google Meets. even though they weren't live, so that I could give them attendance credit.
Okay. And then will the teachers that teach remote learning be teaching on location?
Yes, we want all teachers teaching on location. Their technology is better at home. Better than at home. Their manipulatives are there. Their boards are there. So we want them to also plan together. So yes, they're going to be teaching at the school. The only exception to that is if we were to have a shutdown because we've had some COVID classes or a teacher is excluded due to being around COVID. If the nurse excludes them, then they may be able to participate and do the teaching from home.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions? Yes. I'm concerned about the TEA as far as ADA in October. Do you know whether or not that would possibly be waived? We don't know at this point.
Okay, so we know attendance at this point, they're not talking about waiving it. So they've given us the first 2 6 weeks periods right now as a freebie. So if we are worse off than we were a year ago, then they will give us last year's attendance. If we're better, which is what we're hoping, they're going to give us this year's attendance. But after the first 2 6 weeks, we have to accept it. That's why hopefully we train our parents and our students that if I keep my kid at home, how I can get that attendance credit. Remember how easy it is? Mr. Garza said, I wish I could do that when I was in school. If we can train them to do any of these things, then they'll be able to be counted in attendance. So we got 2 6 week periods to train them. And then we got to do ADA the right way.
Okay, because we have less kids this time, because I noticed the total enrollment is like 20,000 something. And I think last year, didn't we have about 22, 23,000?
We were about 22. We never got to 22.5. So we were a little less last year. And to be honest, I'm expecting a little less this year because of kinder and pre-K. I think some parents are keeping them home. Right. We do have some plans. So we're about to be mailing out and giving pre-K some free packages of learning manipulatives, hoping they'll tell their neighbors about it. And their neighbors will go, oh, all I got to do is register my kid. And so we're trying to increase that. But yes, we know our enrollment is down, especially in those grade levels. So we're going to do all that we can to increase that enrollment, but also increase the attendance so that we are not hurting. But yes, we know it's there.
I have one other question.
No problem.
I'm a classroom teacher. I'm sick today. How do you do the substitute teachers?
We're going to do the subs the same way. Now, the teachers are really planning together. So the sub will come in and teach the face-to-face. All of our teachers have these cameras like I have right here on my computer, where they'll be able to get the link will already be on there. The kids can log in. They'll be able to hear what the sub said. The assignments will already be loaded up into their Google Meet.
Oh, okay. That's
so
what
it may be that they just hear the sub for a few minutes and go, oh, okay, there's a sub, and the sub says your assignments in Google Meets, and then they log off and do their assignment in the computer. Okay. But it will be the same way if you're sick and you're not at school.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, the details about the attendance and how we're going to do all that remote learning, I've got a lot of it in my head right now, but that will be at that September workshop, and you'll find it very interesting because I did too, as when I found out what all they're going to allow. And tonight you got the 2 waivers for the second 4 weeks and then the hybrid model for high school.
Ms. Layla,
right. Yes, sir.
Question. So in the instance that we have, we get to a point where we're going to have to decide on a hybrid schedule. I mean, how do you choose the kids that are going to go online and that are going to stay face to face? Is that going to rotate? How does that work?
Now, the parents choose. The parents choose whether they want to keep them at home. Okay. The parents who choose for them to come to school, if that number is so large, we have to allow them all to come to school, but we can divide them into 2 groups. So we'll divide them by address, because, somebody may have cousins that live together or 2 siblings who live together, but they have a different last name. So we're going to divide them by address. And some kids will be Monday, Tuesday kids, and some kids will be Wednesday, Thursday. We'll probably put it out early enough that if they need a switch, let's say you and I are neighbors and we want our kids to go on the same day, then, or we're friends and we want our kids to go on the same day because we help do transportation, we'll put it out early enough that we can allow some switches for that. And then we will have it set, and you'll either be a Monday, Tuesday kid, which gives you 1 through 4 on Monday and 5 through 8 on Tuesday, or you're a Wednesday, Thursday kid. Again, periods 1 through 4 on Wednesday, periods 5 through 8 on Thursday. And the other 3 days of that week, you're doing remote. So you actually get to come to school twice, and you still do the remote learning the other 3 days. The parents who want their kids to be remote are doing remote learning all 5 days. So we're not forcing them to go to school.
Gotcha. Okay. That answered my question. Thank you.
Okay. Good deal. It's easy to learn all this, right? So easy. No complications at all.
None.
None. I've had to color my hair more than normal trying to get all this set.
Okay.
You did a good job of explaining it, so thank you.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you. And y'all, if you have come up with other questions and you want to not wait till September, that's not a problem. Feel free to email me and I'll be glad to get the answer to you.
Thank you, Liz.
You're welcome.
There being no other business before the board at this time, the meeting is adjourned. It is 4:52 p.m. Independent School District is now convening a special meeting on Tuesday, August 25th, 2020 via video conference. The time is 4:52 p.m. I want to welcome the viewers to this meeting of the Board of Trustees. As the Galena Park ISD Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals, listen to reports from the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. It is not the role of the board to make the day-to-day operational decisions. The management and day-to-day operation of the district are the responsibility of the superintendent. We have policies and procedures in place to resolve concerns and issues. This is a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. Prior to this meeting, board members received information related to items on today's agenda. Agenda items will not necessarily be handled in the order listed on this notice. The meeting is open to all who wish to hear the matters discussed. Thank you for taking the time to join us today and for your interest in the Galena Park Independent School District.
At this time, I will call roll. When your name is called, please answer with here or present. Ramon Garza, President.
Present.
Jeff Miller, Vice President.
Here.
Adrian Stevens, Secretary.
Here.
Trustees, Wilford J. Broussard Jr. Wanda Heath Johnson.
Present.
Noe Esparza.
Here.
Norma Hernandez.
Here.
Also joining us through video conference and will respond with here or present are Sharonda Johnson, Executive Director for School and Community Relations.
Here.
Brishan Thompson, Coordinator for School and Community Relations. Anna Salinas, Administrative Assistant to the Superintendent's Office.
Here.
And Cabinet Member Sonia George.
Here.
Dr. Juana Giacona.
Here.
Elizabeth Layler.
Here.
Terry Moore. Dr. Michelle Epps.
Here.
Dina Edgar.
Here.
Dr. David Harris.
Here.
Mike McKay.
Present.
And Holly Malloy. The following participants will be located in the boardroom at 14705 Woodforest Boulevard, Houston, Texas, 77015. Please answer with here or present when your name is called. Brian Clements, Chief of Police and Executive Director for Security and Cybersecurity.
Here.
Elizabeth Valdez, Executive Assistant to the Board of Trustees and Superintendent.
Here.
And I, Dr. John Moore, Superintendent of Schools. Here. Staff members in the boardroom will practice social distancing as required, where there will be no more than 3 people in the boardroom as outlined. We will use masks, sanitizers, disinfectants, etc. as recommended. I will now turn this meeting over to Ramon Garza, Board President.
Ms. Valdez, are there any citizen participation items for this evening?
We have no citizen participation items today.
Ms. Valdez, are there any public comment items for this evening?
We have no public comment items today.
The time is 4:56 p.m. Sonia George, Deputy Superintendent for Operational Support and Chief Financial Officer, will conduct a public hearing on the proposed budget and tax rate. At this time, I will turn the floor over to Ms. George.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try to share my screen. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me this evening. I am very pleased to be presenting to you the public meeting to discuss the proposed 2020-21 budget and to also discuss our proposed tax rate to support that budget. So now I'm not getting it to go. There we go. Sorry about that delay. Okay, so the public hearing tonight is one of the steps that's required in order for you to adopt a operating budget for us. So that's what we are doing this evening. We are holding the required public meeting to discuss the proposed budget and tax rate. The notice of this public meeting was published in the North Channel Star on August 13th, 2020, which is required in order for us to hold this meeting and to allow public comment. At the same time, we also posted a summary of the proposed budget onto the district's website. Again, this is also required by state law. And just as a reminder, we need to adopt the budget prior to August 31st so that it is in place for September 1st, which is the first day of the next fiscal or budget year. So we will review the proposed budget during tonight's meeting, and then later you will have the option of adopting the budget that's recommended to you. We will also be discussing the proposed tax rate, but we will not be asking for you to adopt the tax rate this evening. That will not be taken up until a later meeting. That allows us additional time to receive additional information from the Harris County Appraisal District that may create adjustments to that tax rate. So the assumptions that we have in place currently for the budget that we were going to be proposing to you this evening has a tax rate that's overall 1.4606. This is actually a 1.1 cent decrease for the budget that was adopted for the 2019-20 year. It is comprised of a M&O rate that's $1.1281, and this is set by state statute now. In accordance with House Bill 3, information was provided to the Texas Education Agency, and this was the maintenance and operations tax rate that was calculated based on our current property values. We also have a debt rate that's assumed for this budget adoption of 33.25 cents, and this is required in order for us to be able to pay our bonded debt payments for that are coming up in the next fiscal year. So we received estimates from the Harris County Appraisal District of $10.14 billion for our property values, and we do expect that information to be updated possibly next week, or it may be a little later now with the events that are currently occurring. And then we have a collection rate of 97% that's assumed. Now on the enrollment numbers, which I know there was a little bit of a discussion about this a moment ago, so we are projecting a 0.5% decline from 1920, and it's our average daily attendance that we are assuming that's going to be 20,583. So that is based off of an enrollment that's approximately 22,000, but by the time you factor in what is typically the average attendance rate of our students, it comes out to 20,583 is the assumption. So our campuses are all funded based on an average daily attendance estimate. So All elementary schools receive the same per ADA allocation. The middle schools receive a little bit higher amount, and then we fund the high schools at a slightly higher amount. And we assume what their average daily attendance rate will be for the budget adoption purposes. And then once we start operations, when we get to the end of the second 6 weeks, if we realize that their actual average daily attendance is increasing, we will increase those campus allocations to accommodate for that growth. Our department allocations are based on historical spending, and then they're adjusted for any type of permanent transfers that may have occurred in the prior year. Now, in addition to these base allocations for above base, we do have life cycle maintenance projects. We have $2.5 million that's assumed in this budget. We have some money for technology upgrades, fleet replacement, and then also some miscellaneous type of contracted services cost, and specifically most of those are related to security services. In addition, we're required to report to you by state law how much money that we've allocated for accelerated instruction, and that is $608,000 in this proposed 2020-21 budget, and that is money that's set aside to target instruction for some of our most at-risk students. And again, just a reminder that our state aid calculations now under House Bill 3 use current year property values instead of prior year that had been used historically. So for compensation, you adopted across the board general pay increases of 1.5% of midpoint back in June. And you also adopted a teacher pay scale of $59,000 starting teacher pay. And then we had increases to all returning teachers. And those salary increases are all included in the budget allocations. We also had a total of 91.5 new positions that were approved and included in this budget. And again, as a reminder, 64 of those were related to the full day pre-K initiative that was required by House Bill 3. So here is the budget for the general fund. And I'm going to say to you, this one is slightly different than some of the information that we have been reviewing in our previous runs. And so this is my 9th budget that I have assisted in preparing for Galena Park ISD. And by far, this budget has definitely been the most challenging that we have faced. So with the complications of House Bill 3 and then COVID and then all of the adjustments to the calendar, what happened was with the pushback of the start of school until September the 8th, it created a situation where the teachers and the delay of their return to work, it's in prior years, a portion of teacher salaries are accounted for in one fiscal year and the remainder in another year. So what's happening now is a lot of that pay is being pushed over to 2020-21. So what we have here is total revenues of $241.2 million up at the top. And then now with this push of this calendar adjustment, it's creating total expenditures of $248.7 million, which means that this will be a budget that would be adopted at a $7.5 million deficit for our general fund. And again, that primarily relates to the shift in the calendar for the teachers and then how their scheduled work days are. And then on our food service budget, what we are proposing adoption, this is a balanced budget of $17.7 million in revenue and $17.7 in expenditures. And then again, the third budget, which the board is required to adopt, is the debt service. And this funds our outstanding bond payments. So we have, again, a balanced budget here of $33.6 million in revenue and $33.6 million in expenditures. So that includes my portion of the information for this evening. And at this time, I can entertain any questions or any public comment that anyone has.
Any questions for Ms. George?
Okay, if not, I would like to add one thing. There's a few people in the business office. As a matter of fact, we have a team of people that assist us with this process, but I have to make a special comment with my appreciation to Christopher Young, Dina Edgar, and Ida Schultze. As you can imagine, we have been working on preparing this budget. Some of us have been working in closets, and some of us have been working at dining room tables, and then we've been in the office whenever we've been able to. And it has been a constant challenge this year with the still implementing House Bill 3 and all of the nuances and the changes that have been thrown at us with changing grants and changes due to COVID-19. So I just wanted to, again, make sure that we recognized those three individuals for the incredible number of hours that I know that they put in helping me prepare this. And then also thank you for your support during this process. It's been a bit of a wild ride this spring, and then for Dr. Moore's support as we've gone through this transition.
Hey, Ms. George.
Yes.
Would you please relate this budget we're talking to last year's budget where you talked about the move of the calendar and the money difference, so the fund balance will show a bigger,
Sure.
a bigger surplus because of that?
Sure. So what's happening is there's about $5 million in expenditures that we had anticipated that would be incurred in the 1920 fiscal year because teachers were scheduled to return earlier. So when the teachers return earlier in August, according to accounting rules, we have to basically account for the amount of days that they've worked, even if we haven't even paid those wages to them yet. That becomes an expenditure in that fiscal year. And since the teachers did not return early in August and the shift of those days, that's what's pushing so much of the expenditures into 2021. So what we expect to see is an increase, a higher than we expected increase in the fund balance for 1920. And we will be able to basically assign that money or set that money aside, so to speak, so it will cover these salaries. There's not really a change in the money that we're spending. It's just what accounting period is it being captured in. And so in one year, it looks like you have more money than you actually do just because you haven't spent that yet. It's not committed yet versus the next year. So it has to do with our accounting rules and how we have to accrue revenue and expenditures.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. George. The public hearing is adjourned. The time is 5:09 p.m. We will now move on to this evening's special meeting. Mike McKay, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resource Services, will present the Texas Association of School Boards Localized Policy Manual Update 115 as presented for the Board of Trustees review at this first reading.
Mr. Garza, Mr. McKay lost internet connection. He just sent me a text. Can we come back to this?
Okay. So then we'll move on to new business.
Yes, sir.
I will entertain a motion to approve the joint election agreement between Harris County and Galena Park ISD for the election of 3 Board of Trustees positions to be held November 3rd, 2020 at the estimated expenditure of $150,000 as presented.
I, Wanda Johnson, move we approve the joint election agreement between Harris County and Galena Park ISD as presented.
I, Norma Hernandez, second the motion.
If the motion passes, I, Ramon Garza, authorize GPISD to utilize my electronic signature for the item. Ms. Stevens, do you authorize the use of electronic signature as well?
I authorize the use of my electronic signature.
A motion was made by Wanda Heath Johnson and second by Norma Hernandez. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote by stating in favor or oppose or abstain. Jeff Miller. Jeff Miller in favor. Adrian Stevens.
Adrian Stevens in favor.
Wanda Johnson.
Wanda Johnson in favor.
Noe Esparza.
Noe Esparza in favor.
Ramon Garza. In favor. Norma Hernandez.
In favor.
Sorry, Norma. The
That's
motion
okay.
carries 6-0 with no abstentions. I will entertain a motion to approve the change order number 1 for the amount for the summer 2020 renovation at Zoltz Education Center for the amount not to exceed $76,807, increasing the total contract with E-Contractors USA LLC to $2.466596 million as presented.
I, Noe Esparza, move we approve the change order number 1 for the summer 2020 renovations at Zoltz Education Center as presented.
I, Norma Hernandez, second the motion.
A motion was made by Noe Esparza and second by Norma Hernandez. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote by stating in favor, oppose, or abstain. Jeff Miller. Jeff Miller in favor. Adrian Stevens.
Adrian Stevens in favor.
Wilford. Wanda Johnson.
Wanda Johnson in favor.
Noe Esparza.
Noe Esparza in favor.
Norma Hernandez.
Norma Hernandez in favor.
I, Ramon Garza, abstain. The motion carried 5-0 with 1 abstention. I will entertain a motion to approve the change order number 1 for the summer 2020 renovations at North Shore Senior High School for an amount not to exceed $54,657, increasing the total contract with E-Contractors USA LLC to $223,177 as presented.
I, Norma Hernandez, move we approve the change order number 1 for the summer 2020 renovations at North Shore Senior High School as presented.
I, Noe Esparza, second the motion.
A motion was made by Norma Hernandez and second by Noe Esparza. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote by stating in favor, oppose, or abstain. Jeff Miller. Jeff Miller in favor. Adrian Stevens.
Adrian Stevens in favor.
Wanda Johnson.
Wanda Johnson in favor.
Noe Esparza.
Noe Esparza in favor.
Norma Hernandez.
Norma Hernandez in favor.
I, Ramon Garza, abstain. The motion carried 5-0 with 1 abstention. I will entertain a motion to approve the increase for adult meal prices to $2.80 for breakfast and $4 for lunch as presented.
I, Norma Hernandez, move we approve the increase for adult meal prices as presented.
I second it.
The motion was made by Norma Hernandez and second by Wanda Heath Johnson. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote by stating in favor, oppose, or abstain. Jeff Miller. Jeff Miller in favor. Adrian Stevens.
Adrian Stevens in favor.
Wanda Johnson.
Wanda Johnson in favor.
Noe Esparza.
Noe Esparza in favor.
Norma Hernandez.
Norma Hernandez in favor.
I, Ramon Garza, am in favor. The motions carry 6-0 with no abstention. With respect to the general consent agenda, do we want to remove any items for separate vote or take the agenda as is?
I move that we approve the general consent agenda as presented.
I, Adrian Stevens, second the motion.
A motion was made by Wanda Heath Johnson and second by Adrian Stevens. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote by stating in favor, oppose, or abstain. Jeff Miller. Jeff Miller in favor. Adrian Stevens.
Adrian Stevens in favor.
Wanda Johnson.
Wanda Johnson in favor.
Noe Esparza.
Noe Esparza in favor.
Norma Hernandez.
Norma Hernandez in favor.
I, Ramon Garza, am in favor. The motion carries 6-0 with no abstentions. With respect to the financial consent agenda, do we want to remove any items for separate vote or take the agenda as is?
I,
Jeff Miller move we approve the financial consent agenda as presented.
Adrian Stevens, second the motion.
Excuse me, Adrian.
A motion was made by Jeff Miller and second by Adrian Stevens. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote by stating in favor, oppose, or abstain. Jeff Miller.
Jeff Miller in favor.
Adrian Stevens.
Adrian Stevens in favor.
Wilford Bruce. Wanda Johnson.
Wanda Johnson in favor.
Noe Esparza.
Noe Esparza in favor.
Norma Hernandez.
Norma Hernandez in favor.
I, Ramon Garza, am in favor. The motion carries 6-0 with no abstention.
Mr. McKay's available now.
Okay, we'll go back. Mike McKay, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resource Service, will present the Texas Association of School Board Localized Policy Manual Update 115 as presented for the Board of Trustees review at the first reading.
Good afternoon, Board. I want to apologize. I had to run down from my office. As you can see, I'm not Brian Clements. He's much better looking than I am, but wanted to give you tonight the first reading of Policy Manual Update 115. Ms. Valdez, I'll have that set up here.
Can y'all see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Elizabeth. Okay, so as you can see, 115 focuses on the updating and reorganizing of several of the policies in our FFE series of the policy manual, which mostly include addressing student welfare. FFEA also continues to focus on counseling, and they have added a new code, FFEB, which focuses on mental health provisions. In addition to these changes, Update 115 includes several other policies affected by legislation from the 86th legislative session that were not included in Update 114. And this incorporates numerous changes from the revised administrative code rules. So that's it as far as that. We will bring you for second reading and adoption at the September board meeting. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, Sergeant George, Deputy Superintendent for Operational Support and Chief Financial Officer presented 1, the emergency purchase authorization by resolution COVID-19 pandemic. There being no other business before the board at this time, the meeting is adjourned. The time is 5:19 p.m.